The latest Poco X series devices have finally been announced, and I have both here with me today. The Poco X5 is a new addition to the lineup, providing a more affordable option, while the Poco X5 Pro is a direct successor to the X4 Pro. The X5 starts at just €249, while the X5 Pro starts at the same price its predecessor did, that being €299. The Poco X5 has some similarities to the X4 Pro of last year in terms of display, chipset, expandable storage, and battery capacity, while the Poco X5 Pro steps things up in terms of performance thanks to an upgraded chipset and display thanks to the inclusion of 1920Hz PWM dimming. It has the same battery capacity as the vanilla X5 at 5000 milliamps, but charges faster with 67 watts. You will certainly be getting a great deal regardless of which one you decide to pick up. But how do they compare to each other in terms of design, display, camera, and performance? Let's find out in my full review of the Poco X5 and Poco X5 Pro. Each device comes in 3 different color variants. The X5 comes in blue, green, or black, which are all glossy, while the X5 Pro comes in yellow, blue, or black, which are all matte. I really like the matte finish of the Pro. It kind of differentiates it between the two devices. And in terms of specs, they both have the same sized battery. The Poco X5 Pro has faster 67-watt charging. The X5 Pro has a beefed up Snapdragon 778G chip as opposed to the Snapdragon 695 that we see in the X5. They both have LPDDR4X RAM, UFS 2.2 storage, and both support dual SIM 5G. The Poco X5 Pro, however, has slightly better Wi-Fi 6, slightly better Bluetooth 5.2, and they both support NFC. Both the X5 and X5 Pro have a plastic backplate. The X5 has a Gorilla Glass 3 protection on the front, while the X5 Pro has Gorilla Glass 5. They both have plastic frames, and they both support IP53 dust and splash resistance. The Poco X5 is slightly thicker and heavier than the X5 Pro, that being 7.98mm as opposed to 7.9, and 189 grams as opposed to 181. And when it comes to cameras, they both share the exact same 8-megapixel ultra-wide sensor and 2-megapixel macro sensor, but while the Poco X5 has a 48-megapixel custom ISOCELL JN1 sensor, the Poco X5 Pro has the same 108-megapixel ISOCELL HM2 sensor that we saw inside the X4 Pro last year. And when comparing them side by side, the X5 Pro looks slightly better thanks to optimization in terms of ultra wide. They can both shoot native resolution main photos, once again better on the X5 Pro, and they can both bin down, though the X5 Pro can do 9:1 pixel binning. They both have 2x digital zoom on their native resolution mode, and they can both bin down using the same 2x zoom. We also have 5x zoom on both, though it is quite a bit better on the X5 Pro at 10x as well, which is the max zoom for both devices. We can take macro shots on both, and though they're the same, there is slightly more detail on the X5 Pro. And when it comes to taking portrait shots, the X5 Pro does have a wider lens and the depth of field is slightly better. Now, recording video, we can do 4K 30 FPS on the X5 Pro. The max on the X5 using the main camera is 1080p 30 FPS, and we do have slow-mo on both, that we can do 1080p 120 FPS slow-mo on the X5 Pro as opposed to 720p on the X5. And the X5 Pro can also do 720p 960 FPS for super slow motion results. We also have 4K 30 FPS main while walking, and 1080p 30 FPS is a bit jittery on the regular X5. And we can record 1080p 60 FPS using the main sensor on the X5 Pro. Once again, the X5 is capped at 30 FPS when recording at full HD. Now, we do have ultra-wide sensors on both, and since they're the same, they both cap at 1080p 30 FPS, and they both look largely similar, but stabilization is slightly better on the X5 Pro. Even at night, it is slightly better in terms of processing thanks to the beefier Snapdragon 778G chipset on the X5 Pro. And once again, the X5 Pro can shoot 4K 30 FPS main video, and at night, it just packs in that extra level of detail. Now, of course, taking shots at night, we don't have an ultra-wide night mode option for the X5, so it naturally looks better on the X5 Pro with night mode on. And when it comes to the mains, both of them look decent with night mode on, but once again, slightly more detail on the X5 Pro. Now, when it comes to night mode off at 2x zoom and night mode on, they both make a bit of a difference, but the X5 Pro makes a bit more of a difference. And when zooming in by 5x, once again, it's like night and day between the two devices, even at 10x zoom, which even with night mode off on the X5 Pro and night mode on, is streaks ahead of the X5. Now, when it comes to taking portraits at night, once again, a wider angle on the X5 Pro, so a slightly better natural depth of field on the X5 Pro, not to mention that edge detection pretty much on both are almost perfect. So the camera performance on both of these devices are actually very similar in terms of ultra wide and macro. though the processing is noticeable on the X5 Pro because of the upgraded chipset as opposed to the regular X5, and the main sensor on the X5 Pro is significantly better than the X5's main sensor, even in terms of video recording. So if you ask me, I think the extra 50 euros that you're paying for the X5 Pro is certainly worth it. They both have power buttons on the right-hand side mixed up as a fingerprint sensor. Above that, we have volume rockers on both devices. And at the bottom of the one and on the side of the X5, we do have dual SIM 5G. On the X5, we have a single SIM and a secondary SIM, which can actually be expanded with storage using a micro SD card, while the Poco X5 Pro is only dual SIM, no option for expandable storage. We do have USB 2.0 Type-C ports at the bottom, and we do have a single firing speaker on the X5 and a dual stereo speaker system on the X5 Pro. So if you want a better loudspeaker, definitely go for the X5 Pro. We have 3.5mm headphone jacks on both devices, and we also have IR blasters on both as well, which is a nice little touch. We also have very similar selfie cameras, though it's 13 megapixels on the X5 and 16 megapixels on the X5 Pro. And when you actually get to the results, it is actually very noticeable. The X5 Pro is a bit washed out, but a lot more natural looking and packed with a little bit more detail.
What's up guys, this is Technic recording a 1080p 30fps selfie video on the Poco X5 over here, and a 1080p 60fps selfie video on the Poco X5 Pro over here. Let me know which one you think looks best in terms of video quality and which one sounds best in terms of audio quality.
So when it comes to selfie video, we can reach 60 FPS at 1080p on the X5 Pro as opposed to 30 FPS on the X5, but both of them at 30 FPS at night. You can once again see the better quality on the X5 Pro. And taking night photos, not only are they bright on the X5 Pro, but they are packed with a lot more detail. Sometimes it's a bit blurry and fuzzy on the regular X5, so the selfie camera performance is definitely a lot stronger on the X5 Pro. Which means for those vlogging out there with a bit of a budget, I would once again recommend the X5 Pro over the vanilla X5 due to it having a slightly better selfie camera. I mean, it's not perfect, but it is certainly better than the regular X5 in terms of selfie camera performance, in terms of video and taking photos in the day or at night. It just packs in a different level of detail and brightens things up, though I must mention that it does tend to wash colors out a little bit. Now finally, getting to power on the devices, they are both fitted with always on displays, though they are not always on. You have to tap the screen and it shows the always on display for 10 seconds despite them both having AMOLED panels. So it's not the best, but they're still nice and bright. And we do have those wonderful side mounted fingerprint sensors as well as 2D face unlock, which utilizes the selfie cameras on both. And they're both pretty much exactly the same in terms of accuracy and speed, whether you're using your finger or face to unlock your device. They are both kitted with 6.67 inch AMOLED displays, though it is worth mentioning that the X5 can reach a higher peak brightness of 1200 nits as opposed to the 900 nits on the X5 Pro, but the X5 Pro is actually a 10-bit display, whereas the X5 is not. Now, one of the reasons why the X5 Pro is slightly dimmer than the vanilla X5 is because it now sports 1920Hz pulse width modulation dimming, which minimizes eye strain. The X5 still has PWM dimming, but it's a lot lower at 480Hz. They both have 120Hz refresh rate panels. You can also opt for 60Hz if you prefer that. And most apps support the 120Hz, but it is worth mentioning that both of them are fixed. There's no LTPO tech here, so they only get as low as 60Hz and as high as 120, and they both sport 240Hz touch sampling rates. They both have MIUI software skinned over Android 12, though we have MIUI 14 on the X5 Pro as opposed to MIUI 13 on the vanilla X5. And though there is a difference between MIUI 13 and 14 on most devices, they're honestly exactly the same on these two devices. And speaking of being on a budget, though the X5 Pro doesn't really cost that much more, its haptics are quite a lot better than that of the vanilla X5. And when it comes to speakers, as I mentioned earlier, the Poco X5 has just one single down-firing speaker, while the X5 Pro has dual stereo speakers, one at the bottom and one at the top. So how do they stack up against each other? Let's go ahead and have a listen. When it comes to gaming, they both are kitted with Game Space or Game Turbo on Poco devices, I guess you could say. Hopping into Genshin Impact over here and looking at some of the Game Turbo features, we do have mini windows as well as different filters we can choose from, and we do have boost performance mode on both. And though it says 120 FPS on the Poco X5 Pro, I can assure you the game is capped at 60. So the game being capped at 60 means that neither of them can reach over 60. And talking about performance here, we got an average FPS of 26 on the X5 as opposed to 34 on the X5 Pro. So the X5 Pro is certainly quite a bit better in terms of gaming performance over here, with a minimum of 29 FPS and a max of 35 as opposed to the X5's min being 23 and max being 28. Now moving on to another game, that being Real Racing 3, which doesn't have an FPS cap. We're getting 120 FPS on the X5, but it is limiting itself on the X5 Pro by 60 FPS, which is a bit of a bummer, but it is worth mentioning that when playing Real Racing 3 on the vanilla X5, it thinks I'm using a gamepad, but I'm not. And moving on to actual spec'd hardware, we do have 8 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM on both devices, and they both have RAM extension for an additional 5 gigs of RAM, bringing them both up to a total of 13 gigs of RAM. And while the Poco X5 has an identical chipset to last year's X4 Pro, the X5 Pro takes it up a notch with the inclusion of the Snapdragon 778G chipset, and that translates to 534,438 points on AnTuTu for the X5 Pro, as opposed to just over 400,000 points on the vanilla X5. When it comes to Geekbench, the X5 got a single core score of 691 and multi-core of 2109, while the X5 Pro got a single core score of 788 and multi-core of 2974. Testing out 3D Mark Wildlife over here, the X5 Pro is essentially double in terms of performance when it comes to graphics. I guess it's safe to say that the Poco X5 Pro is worth the extra bit of cash if you're looking to step things up in terms of performance thanks to it housing a better chipset. They both have an identical software experience despite the Pro model offering the latest MIUI 14 software skin, since they both run on Android 12. They both have fantastic displays, and while the X5 gets brighter, the X5 Pro has higher 1920Hz PWM dimming and much slimmer bezels. The X5 Pro no doubt takes better selfie photos and videos and has much better main camera performance, but they both share the same ultra-wide and macro sensors. Don't get me wrong, the vanilla X5 still produces great results for its price, but the X5 Pro is certainly a step ahead in terms of raw hardware. They both have an IP53 certification, but the X5 Pro has stronger Gorilla Glass 5 protection. They both have a headphone jack, but the X5 Pro has dual stereo speakers, and they both support dual 5G SIMs, but the vanilla X5 has the option of expandable storage. They are both great contenders in their own way, and you'll certainly be getting what you pay for, but I can't help but feel that the Poco X5 Pro is the better deal for so many reasons, and it doesn't even cost that much more. Let me know which one you're gonna decide to pick up, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on what you think about the latest Poco X5 series lineup. This is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.